I'm glad the other people went first, and I'll move around a lot. And if anybody needs to stand up just to take a little break, so I don't know, my camera guy might get kind of mad here. So I worked in Manhattan, Kansas, and I said something to one of my coworkers. I said, well, yeah, I got to go out and get a half a beef. We buy half a beef from a guy, and in fact, he does really well. He doesn't do anything else. It's all custom. He has orders, and he only wants recurring orders. So he knows we're good. We buy half, we actually buy a whole. We split it with another set of people, and he knows it. And it's on the calendar every year. So I said I was going out to buy the half of beef, or to pick up half the beef. And this little gal, she's from Nebraska. Where's my Nebraska guy? She said, how do you get it home? What do you do? I said, well, we just cut off the legs and we throw it on top of the Suburban. And she believed me. And I said, Rhonda, I said, this is just like buying meat. I said, you eat hamburger, right? She said, but I don't know where it comes from. I said, you gotta be kidding me. You know? So here she was. So we had to explain. I said, it's packaged. You know, we put it in the freezer. I said, it looks just like, kind of like what you buy at the store. You know, depends on if you want cellophane wrap or the paper wrap. So that's my little story about when you say educating people. And in Kansas, we have a Facebook group that just launched called Shop Kansas Farms. They've been doing very well, something to watch for or go look at and see how they're doing it. But when the pandemic hit, they launched and they started to get the word out. And so they have been hugely successful at letting people know where they can buy local, vegetables, where they can buy meat, where they can get it processed. They've even branched out because of the processing issues too. So they have all of that out there. So that was one of the things that came out of it. And every time I'd go and look at the site, basically they were always educating people on how much does a half beef fill in a freezer. And then also following the rules of Facebook, which we'll get into in a little bit. So we talked about a little bit about passion. So I've had many lives, and some of the things that I feel like I'm passionate about are product launches. I've been involved with a lot of successful product launches, businesses, everything from multi-million-dollar paint systems to software as a service that we sold for city governments. So that's kind of what got me into some of the website stuff. And I like learning. So with my marketing company, I like learning. I have lots of different, or a few different clients, and I get to learn about them and what they do. Kansas Grazing Lands Coalition is one of my clients that I get to learn about. And then the other sad part of this, which is what you're going to get to see some of, is I also like statistics. I'm a math major by training. And so I like patterns, and I like to see, my big thing is always when I look at numbers or look at charts, how can we improve? How can we get better? What really worked here? Why did this work and this one didn't? You know, so those are the kinds of things that I look at. So I'm part of the Kansas Grazing Lands Coalition, and we have a CCGA, Conservation Collaboration Grant Agreement, with NRCS. So that's how a lot of this funding came about. And when we sat down and wrote the proposal to NRCS, we had to say what our outcomes were. And basically, the outcomes they needed to say were that the NRCS conservation programs are going to be increased because of some of these activities that we're going to do. And from my perspective, we were always doing outreach, training, things like that. And my perspective of it was I'm trying to increase the attendance and the awareness of it. And I'm trying to increase the number of followers on my KGLC social media. And my goals were to gain 50% more followers on social media and double the email subscribers. And I say that's important, okay? I want to tell you that Facebook, if you're relying on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever, at any point in time, they can shut you down, okay? And I'll talk about some of the ways that I've been shut down and what it's like to deal with Abu from India and try to explain things to him. So doubling your email subscribers, getting the email subscriptions. That way, I know, I'm notorious. You should see my inbox. It's horrible. I don't open emails and things like that, but at least you have one more method of communication with people. And you don't want to blast their inbox, but if you can, you want to focus on some of that, as well as your website. This is about marketing channels, and when we talk about channels, I don't have a marketing degree. Like I said, I have a math degree, and I've just kind of evolved into technology and all kinds of things. I'm like, what the heck's a channel, Back in the old days when you had the dial, it was 2, we had channel 2, 7, UHF, if I could tune it right? So that's where my mind goes, is channels, TV channels, or something like that, right? So channels for us is the different methods that we can communicate. And on my website, I can see where they're coming from. So I can see the social channels and what's the social has fed into my website. So to get them to click on my website, this is what I can see. And I can see how many of those people were new users, how many sessions, which means kind of the pages that they went to, how quickly the one thing over here is called bounce rate. That's how quickly they jumped off. Sometimes people are just poking, that really wasn't the site they wanted to go to, so they jump back off. So a high bounce rate isn't good, but actually that's not too bad, even though it seems high. The organic search means they typed into Google, they found the Kansas Grazing Lands Coalition website. Direct, they knew the kglc.org, that's what that means, or they had a link to it, and then the referral or paid search. Paid search is one of those things that we run Google ads for KGLC. So who else is in charge or working with your state grazing land, okay? So Google gives any nonprofit $10,000 a month in Google ads. We don't use it. You can see there's not much traffic to it. But they have requirements, and you can get some paid ads. So we'll run ads for some of our training or something like that. Google also gives you, as a nonprofit, they give you the full enterprise suite too, which is a pretty big value. And for me, that was a huge value because that's where I have all of the storage. And as I started working with KGLC, I started to set them up a little bit more like a real company. So that way, Barth is the executive director, and he's got plans to retire here in the next couple of years. So at some point, somebody else is going to take over. I said, we need it to be more like a file server and a network and things like that. So the Google Enterprise gives me that ability to do that. And then we can also see, as we drill in, this is the marketing channels on the website again, and I can drill in and see what are the marketing channels that are best from the social part of it. So we have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram stories, and YouTube. So which one do you think we should focus on? Yeah. So even though there's people, and I always tell this to companies or to marketing people when I talk to them, the very first thing I say is, first of all, don't feel bad about all of the things that people say, well, why aren't you doing that? Why don't you post to Twitter? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Okay, because there's limited resources, there's limited time, and limited money to do that. To post to all of those channels or those different networks out there, it takes different sizes, it takes different things, it just is different if you're going to do them well. So most of the time I tell people, let's pick the biggest battle that we want to fight and go after. Which one has the biggest numbers? Which one has the best demographics for us, meaning what age, what sex is visiting this media form. And so you can see that Facebook is one of them. And this is from the website, so it helps me to see where are people coming from in the state of Kansas. So it's kind of a nice visual to say, hey, I am reaching out. These are the rural populations. Now, for those of you who don't know Kansas, pretty much this area over in here is the Flint Hills, and they're very much big-time grazers. Western Kansas, and I'm from Western Kansas, it's dry. We don't do the prescribed burns, or they're hoping to get those a little bit more in the western part of the state, but that's why. We do have a lot more of the focus tends to be on the east side. Mm-hmm. How
do you produce that?
That actually comes directly out of my Google Analytics. So, and then, so some of the things that I said is all of my work, I do a lot of busy work, or my team does, doing activities, the social media posts and things like that. And what I'm hoping to do is see if my registrants at my events are growing. And this is arranged by the top to the bottom, but we had 140 at some of our events. So that was pretty good. Here's a few pictures from the events that we had. So when we started this, we actually had to launch a new Facebook page. So this is another thing to warn you all about. The previous person who ran their Facebook page left, no access to it. So we had to start all over, and really, Facebook doesn't let you say the other one's defunct or anything like that. You can try to file some things against it, but both of the Facebook pages will still pull up. So you just have to keep trying to work to try to beat them out, keep promoting it, so that way the other one goes away. And we can see that we started the Facebook. We had actually started in 2019 with KGLC, but then the CCGA gave us more money to really go after it harder. And then unfortunately, COVID hit. And so all of our outreach changed. And one of the things that I said is we can't keep taking in money from the federal government here and not supplying something. So we shifted and said, since we can't do on-site training, we can't do the ranch tours that we wanted to in the COVID year, we started doing more videos. We started hosting some webinars and looking for those opportunities, okay? And so that's what allowed us to grow some of the other things that we did. And I'll show you a few more of those. What's worked best? The best thing on Facebook is events. And you have events, use them, okay? Events are just so powerful on Facebook. Advertise the events. And when I talk about advertising events, if any of you do Facebook, you've seen the little boost thing, right? Makes it easy, boost, boost. Here, 20 bucks here, 50 bucks here, right? It's like maybe you're going to strip joint or something, I don't know, but anyway. So boosting is probably, versus running real ads, it's about I can return on investment is 3 times to 5 times if I run what I call a real ad versus a boost. Every once in a while I'll be lazy and I'll do the boost button. But if you're going to really do this, get an ad account and run real ads, okay? Sharing others' posts, making sure you're mentioning any other companies that you work with or deal with, any other states, any other associations. That's probably the big one. For us, we have a list of all of the conservation districts, and so when we're putting on an event in that region, we'll mention all of them so that way they can help us share it. So those are some of the things that we do. And this is our Instagram growth. So the CCGA was specifically about trying to reach the young and underserved ranchers. Facebook is definitely the older population. Instagram tends to be the younger, although what I can see from the stats is really there's a lot of Facebook in the 25 to 55. And so don't throw out Facebook or don't think that you should do Instagram for the younger. So you can see our numbers really aren't near what they are at the Facebook level. And then YouTube, as I said during the COVID, we launched some YouTube series, interviewing ranchers, putting together a series of videos out there and putting those out there. So we really pushed hard to try to get to our YouTube subscriber levels. The thing that I like about YouTube is Google is the #1 search engine. YouTube is second, maybe third. Microsoft is another search engine. So, and Alexa uses Microsoft, so that's why Microsoft has actually grown in its search engine power. So we, for many of our clients, will also run Microsoft ads too. But YouTube, you know, think about it. What do you use YouTube for? How to, right? How to do something, looking at different things. So the power of media. I have not done TikTok, I will tell you. Anybody doing TikTok? Okay. You know the, yeah, it is definitely younger, right? So that video, or have you heard the song Fancy Like? Fancy Like, it's date night at Applebee's.
I always thought it was a commercial.
I know.
Now it is.
It is a commercial now.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought it was
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought they paid him to write it, but they didn't. And Applebee's has grown their sales over 2019 even. So you always have to look backward now 2 years because of COVID. But 2019, they've exceeded their sales over in that last quarter, and it continues to grow. They had to reintroduce the Oreo cookie milkshake because they talk about that in the song about sharing the Oreo cookie shake. So they had pulled it off the menu and had to add it back in. So you want to talk about the value of somebody else with a song, and then he has a whole TikTok video, so now you have even more followers and more of the younger generation that maybe didn't go to Applebee's necessarily that go to Applebee's. This is just from our videos on YouTube. Some of them, what it shows is when they come from the KGLC website versus Google search. So you know how when you search on Google, and sometimes depending upon what you search, you might see a row of some videos that are helpful for you. So that's what it's saying. And where that comes from and how Google decides that is what you title your video in the YouTube. So one of the things to watch for is to always title that what I would search for if I'm looking for that, or to try to work in a how-to or something like that, because that's usually when YouTube is going to come up. Okay. Facebook, we send them from there, and then the YouTube channel itself, like people searching or maybe people watching a video, and then they say you might like this, the things that appear over at the right-hand side. So that's the other trick, is we always load thumbnails, and you want to load a thumbnail that stands out, okay? So I don't pick a thumbnail from the video itself. I make a different thumbnail and make sure that the title of it stands out. It might even be a little bit gaudy, but that's okay because I want it to stand out when it shows up in the list of thumbnails. My husband told me I wouldn't make any money at marketing because I give away all my secrets, and that's kind of what I do here. So we use the social media to expand the reach. Whoops, I think I missed a slide, didn't I? Whoops. Gotta get the, I know this gets boring, so that's why I was like, okay, at this point, we're probably, getting tired of this stuff, so I've gotta get the little goat in there button. My grandson, of course, he's so cute. So, Twitter growth. The reason why I threw in Twitter into the CCGA is I knew from an NRCS perspective, my husband, full disclosure, my husband's a USDA NRCS employee, or is he retired now? And so I knew he was being pushed to try and set up a Twitter account, which he refused, and he retired before he did. So, but I knew NRCS was pushing Twitter. So I said, okay, if NRCS is pushing Twitter, then I've got to do something to try to show that, that we're using Twitter. And unfortunately, the numbers just aren't there. I've even advertised a little bit on Twitter. I could probably do a little bit more to try to expand that audience on Twitter, but I think the way people consume Twitter is more of your news. You know, you're following the President Trump when he was in there. What silly thing did he say, even though I'm a Republican? You know, those kinds of things that you watch. So, or scores, updates. So it's not necessarily, hey, here's an event out here. Yeah, sometimes I get too far away or something. So the demographics are important. I think one of the things that people thought were, hey, the men aren't going to be there on Facebook. That's not true. Okay. So on this this slide, you can see the men are in the purple. Yeah, my battery. There we go. The men are in the purple, and the women are in the light green. And we can see that the purple exceeds, in most cases, all the way up to the 55 to 64, and then the 65 plus, it's more than that. So, and then the Instagram as well. And you can see it becomes a little bit more obvious which of the age groups are probably the most out there on the social media. One thing about stats, I can twist them to do different things, but they really don't lie at some point. I didn't make them up. This is what's coming directly from the stuff. Mobile, 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 mobile. Very important. If any of your grazing land sites are old and do not pull up and are not responsive on mobile, you've got to make it a priority and get the website done, okay? And I'll tell you, it should not cost $50,000 to $60,000. That's ridiculous for a Grazing Land Coalition website. So the guy who did Kansas Grazing Lands, I do websites. I have a different application that I do them on. And then I also work with this guy who does the one for Kansas Grazing Lands Coalition. And in fact, he and I both worked at the same company many years ago. So it was kind of funny that we ran back into each other. And the system he has is really good for Kansas Grazing Lands or for any grazing land coalition. So if you look at kglc.org and you like it, I can hook you up with the guy and if you're looking at a new website. Let's see. Facebook. So posting and doing all of that isn't going to go anywhere, barely anywhere. Okay. Unless you get something to go viral, like happens sometimes, okay? But you can't count on it. Facebook advertising allows us to expand our reach and to get out there to who I say and to more people than what necessarily I could do with a post. Facebook really cranked down on the post part of it from when I started this to now. So. And the other thing, in case any of you didn't watch 60 Minutes, guess what? Facebook likes controversy, right? So I know they're supposed to be toning it back, but I will tell you, if anybody starts to get on there and bash or do something or say something, let it go for a little bit. Don't just block it, okay? Right? Because eventually, all of your supporters start to go in there, and they'll start to comment back. And then guess what? Facebook says, "Woo! Look at you guys. I'm gonna keep spinning this." So, I don't know if they're going to, start to ratchet that back down because of the 60 Minutes interview and stuff like that. But Facebook does like controversy. Let it go. Don't always feel like you have to block it. I will tell you on the Grazing Lands Coalition site or any other site like yours too. You can go into the Facebook page settings, and there's some moderation levels that you can set, and you can put in words that you want to have blocked. Like, I work with another company that, actually I work with a veterinarian, and they started getting a lot of nasty things about, oh, you killed my dog, or, or something like that. So we started to put it, yeah. So you started to put in, kill, and things like that are that hate speak that you don't want. So you can put that in as a setting on your Facebook, and that way hopefully you can keep some of that kind of trash talk out. This is, I don't know if you can see it here, but down here, the organic means these are posts, okay? And this is what we've had to do to get the word out. The dark is the advertising. So if I wanted, this just reiterates, if I want to reach people and get the word out, I've got to advertise. And when I advertise, I can definitely say the geographic area that I want to advertise in. I can also choose, most of the time our groups, every once in a while we'll do it wide open, but most of the time our audiences, they're called in Facebook, are ag interest or something like that. I'm going to be keeping you everybody from the bar here pretty soon. So, so that's what we usually do, is to try to, not have to pay for people who don't want to see it unless there's areas that we're after. Within the Kansas Grazing Lands Coalition, we had 23 events. The people reached were about 150,000, and our responses were about 1,200. And the ticket clicks you kind of have to ignore. We don't use some of that stuff on the Facebook. And we used our Facebook to expand our reach. You can see some of our different numbers up here. We don't usually advertise our grazing call, which happens once a month, and it only reaches about 103 people. A ranch tour will advertise, and we reached about 14,000 people. And when we advertise a ranch tour, we know that people aren't going to travel probably more than 2 hours, maybe max, maybe an hour, to a tour. So we don't set our area too big. And then these are just some of the examples from the Twitter. We have programs. The one thing that you should know, the secret from a marketing company, is that when we post to Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, we have an application that we can post to all of them at once. So it makes it easier for my people and cuts down their time. They don't have to go into each of the applications and post and post. Some of the other, this isn't a design class or anything like that, but some of the other things to always take note of, and I try to have my people, I say, look, there should be no more than about 8 words on a picture. You can't read them. You can't read them on a phone. A thumbnail view, if I can't read it, it's no good. So I try to, keep them limited. The text area is where you put the information. Hashtagging, of course, on Instagram is probably more important even than Facebook, but you can use it on both. In our last 12 months, we've sent out about 32,000 emails. Our open rate, I wish I had an open rate like this for my stuff. It's 29%, so it's a really good open rate. And then we have a bunch of clicks off of it. And our emails are always promoting the next series of events and things like that we're going to do. In the wintertime, we're doing a series on facts, ag facts, and then I also asked my marketing team to do some things to promote people liking the page, subscribing to our email list, some of those kinds of things, because we don't have the events in the wintertime. So advertising, just to kind of give you a clue as to how much we've spent in the advertising, the social media ad spends, we're about $11,000, and I spent about $1,800 in radio ads. And I didn't feel like I got much return out of my radio ads. I did it for an event, and I just didn't feel good about it. So, and it's so hard to track. That's the one bad thing. That's one thing I like about social media, is I can at least see what my results are, and radio is a little bit tougher, and it's more expensive. We put the webinars, we did some webinar series. We re-recorded them then and put them up on YouTube. We're working on a prescribed burn video series right now. And we had promotion of our range health, sheep and goats. That was a big We had big turnouts for that this last year. I never would have guessed it, so it's always good to prove me wrong, so that was good. And then here's the information. If you want to download it, the QR code, that is one of the things that I was going to tell you about. I hated QR codes. They were out, you know, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and I hated them because they kind of mess with design, and all of a sudden you got one more graphic or one more logo to do. But you are seeing QR codes everywhere, and they're very, I think this time around they're very useful and they're easier than they've ever been. So that way you can get to a website, you can get to an email. You've seen some of the banners out there have the QR codes on them. I know somebody I was talking to, he didn't have a QR code, so I'm sitting there pulling out my phone and punching it in. And I thought, gosh, it would have been easier if he had had that QR code. So I will tell you, QR codes, one little thing too on those, if you go out to one of those QR code generator sites and they say, oh, you can put your little logo in there, don't do it because it expires. So unless you're going to subscribe to that service and keep it going, use the free one only. And I think you should be good on the QR code generator. So any questions?
There's a lot about demographics up there. What about psychographics? Do you guys mess with that very much?
I do not.
Okay.
So I do not. Do you have any ideas on it?
Advice about that? Or?
No.
What was it?
Psychographics about what they're thinking about or what they're
It's really their
mindsets.
what they're looking for when it comes to direct marketing from the farm to plate. It's actually more important, almost more important than the demographic.
Then I would agree with you.
Common thinking people are going to
Yeah.
click on the same.
Yeah.
What psychographics are you shooting for rather than the issue? That's sometimes, maybe in your application with this, it doesn't matter. But I was just curious whether you.
Yeah. No, that's like, I mean, like I said, I like to learn.
Keywords, though.
Yeah,
Like, you do
keywords.
have those interest groups in Facebook ads that are kind of getting some of that.
And then the other thing you can do in Facebook ads is you can do lookalikes. So we'll have our audience of our page, people who like it and stuff like that. And then you can have the lookalikes after that, off of that. So, I mean, you know, and I will tell you one of the frustrations that I had when I started going with doing all of this stuff, I said, God, our numbers are so low, they're so low. But then I have to think about it, the ranching population is small. Mm-hmm. I don't want a lot of numbers a lot of times because that means I might have reached too far into Wichita or Kansas City and those people aren't on, you know, the ranches. So I really try hard to, you know, stay focused on the fact that it's okay if we have the low numbers, and then that does make it sometimes a little bit more difficult to make some of those trends and ideas that we want to have. So, any other questions?
Any correlation between the budget you should give yourself for Facebook ads and your gross revenue? Like, is there any, like?
Some of the thumb rules that, you know, product launch, if you're in a product launch mode, you should usually have your marketing dollars be higher and then they should be going down. And I'll see anywhere from 5% to 20% of your sales would be your marketing dollars. So it does vary by the industry, it varies by, and that's all marketing dollars. So if you're doing trade shows or you're doing other things like that, that might also mean that that's coming out of that budget as well. So, okay. And the other thing you have to look at too is the lifetime value. So now, can I, instead of advertising to my people who liked my page, which I usually don't at some point, unless it's, I guess, events I do, because I do want them to see it too. But maybe I can take them off of that because I can count on them to be a subscriber or something like that at a certain point. So you can start to move that. And the lifetime value of it means that rancher will see our stuff and go looking for it instead of me having to advertise and bring them in all the time. So I can move them off.
One of the things I thought I noticed with Facebook ads it was like I had to play games with Facebook. For instance, I put a post up where if I let it ran for a while and get some clicks, then boosted it, I got way more out of it.
Yeah.
It seemed like they took me for granted if I let ads run out, and if I would go in and cut it, the next time I ran an ad, it was like they gave me more. It's strange. It's really strange.
It is. I don't even want to try to guess the Facebook algorithm.
Yeah.
And I've had another guy, another advertiser, and I think they took the option away from it. But what he would do is we would have scheduled posts, and he would advertise them so that way they got some momentum. So then that way the post took off and had more momentum that wasn't paid for. So, you know, he just kind of went the opposite way. So yes, it is. It's kind of weird. I will tell you the one thing that we had an issue with, we were advertising to get prescribed burn plan signed up. We had a nice little video thing, you know, showing it. And we got shut down because we were advertising. We had a social issue.
Oh.
So we had to try to explain. I mean, this is and if any of you have dealt with Facebook, it is horrendous. It's at least a half a day. It took, or a full day of trying to explain to them, this is not a, you know, social issue. This is a management practice. And finally, within about probably a week, you know, they let our ads run, which was ridiculous. The event was probably about over by that time, you know, but that's what you have to deal with Facebook. It's taken me 6 months to refute some charges they had on my account too, so.
I wanted to talk about emails, because what I heard you say earlier was sending emails. Do you have some sense of how many is too many? You know, how often you email, how people are like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, my preference is probably no more than twice a month. That would be, you know, I don't know. That's my own self. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, this is kind of before you start to not open any emails.
Yeah, that's the recommendation I've had is minimum of monthly and maximum of weekly.
You know, if you, it depends on if you have something going on all of the time, then it could be weekly. Right.
Yeah.
That it's not just the same old thing. Exactly. But if you have something new, and it's something that maybe you think I'm going to want to see because it is new, it's a series or something like that, then I'd say that's great, you know, that you can do it weekly. But I do think most all of us probably have that inbox of, oh my gosh, I don't, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, just keep.
So, my question is, you spend $11,000 on social media.
Mm-hmm.
If you were, I know that you're a service organization and that you're funded by, you're not there to make money.
Right.
But if you did charge actual market value for the engagement that you're getting from those, what do you think the value created for your members or for the people that you're trying to serve was compared to how much you spent on advertising?
For a normal business, and this is where then when I work with a business, you know, what is the product you're selling? What is the margin? And let's start to work backwards. What do we want to spend on advertising? Or do we have a lifetime value? Like I said, the veterinarian practice, they had a lifetime value of a customer that would be with them at least 5 years, you know. So we had to work into that as far as doing their advertising. So to me, it is about that, or is it simply that we have to do something to get the awareness right now? And that is one thing that I don't like about Facebook advertising. It is very much an awareness thing. Paid ads mean I need that service. Google paid ads, Google search ads. When I say paid ads, it's Google search or something like that. If I'm searching for something, I'm pretty close to the buying process. Versus Facebook, it's a little bit more of, oh, that's cool, I might buy that, or I'm going to go look at that website. So you have to understand what each channel brings to you, and you know, and where you do that. And then for us, the other thing that we do as marketers is we might have Facebook ads, and then we'll have Google ad remarketing going on. We have a lot of different things going on that are maybe lower cost than that original blast awareness stuff. And we just keep, when they talk about a funnel, I always like, what's this? It just means that, okay, I keep moving people down, and closer to the buy, and how can I, kind of keep that cost lower than as they move through it. But I've got to cast that big wide net first sometimes, and then kind of hone them in and bring them in.
Do you have a cost per lead target for your business?
It does depend. When we sold multi-million-dollar paint systems, that could be a high cost per lead. And I got another company that we're doing potato chips. And I said, guys, look, they're not buying cases of potato chips on your website. I said, this is really hard for me to market. I said, unless you tell me that your distributors are telling you that we're selling more potato chips at the store. I said, then I can feel better about the advertising we're running. It's like, oh, just keep going. I'm like, okay, I'll keep spending your money. I don't like doing that, unless we're getting something.
Is there a target in terms of percentage
Of the,
of gross revenue?
it is, I always hate that answer, it depends, but it really does, because it is that client something that I can resell a product, even for myself. It's a struggle for myself, because I'll run ads to find new clients, and they're expensive for my area. But if I sign a new client and he's paying me, say $700 a month, then plus I get website development or I get some other things on top of it, it's like, well, that $3,000 ad was probably worth it in the long run. So it really does, and it's, some of it's even, what can you tolerate? I hate to say it, but it truly is, as far as that goes. Yeah.
Okay. We've,
Yeah.
This was a really good session. I love all the questions, but they will be here if you have a dying question that you want to ask before you leave. But join me in thanking Laura for coming today.